Hi everyone, it's me, Arden Lee. I am back with another video, and today I'm going to be answering a question from one of the members of the Repatterning Parlor who asks the question, how do I choose a better partner? How can I break the pattern of the type of partners that I have attracted in the past? So before I dive into that question, of course, I would love to remind everyone that I am currently enrolling for the Winter 2020 session of the Repatterning Project. So if you've been enjoying these videos and vibing with this content and you're thinking that you're ready to do the full process from start to finish, the full 8-week course, then I'd love to hop on a call with you and let's figure out if now is the right time for you to join this container and do the full work. We start January 26th, so reach out to me and let's have that chat and see if it's a good fit. So let's talk now about this question of how do I choose a better partner? This person didn't specify the pattern that they referenced to in the question. They said, how do I break the pattern? So I can't answer in this video specifically. I can't tailor my response to what that pattern is because it wasn't specified in the question. But the good news about this is that if you're asking, how do I break the pattern, you probably already know what it is, right? You probably already know, well, I'm choosing people who are hanging around and they're enjoying my company, but they never go both feet in and commit to me. Or I'll be with someone for a while who seems really cool and nice, but then this sort of nasty side starts to come out of them and they start to treat me in ways that make me feel really bad about myself. Or it could be like, wow, I'm with people who are super into me in the very beginning, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what goes on, but they lose interest, they pull away, or they start to ghost, and I don't know how to solve that. So the first thing that you want to notice is, what is the pattern that I'm breaking, right? What is the pattern that I'm breaking, and when do I first start to notice that? When do I first start to, when in the past historically have I first started to see those signs? When do I start to get those little butterflies in my stomach? Not the good kind, the bad butterflies that are like, oh, something feels a little bit off. Because typically we look back and usually we can generally see when we started to notice that there was a problem. At least we can tell when our bodies started to notice that there was a problem, right? When was the first time that we started to feel really nervous about something, or something is off, I feel bad, this person is making me feel bad, we had our first fight, and you have a fight, and maybe, there are times that conflict, for example, I don't want to say, hey, avoid these red flags and have that turn us into being completely conflict avoidant, right? Because sometimes something can come up and we can feel a trigger, we can feel like, oh no, I'm worried, like this might feel bad. But it's our responsibility to be able to communicate around that, right? We need to be able to sit down with that person and say, hey, this is what this is feeling like. This is how historically this has played out in the past. And I'm not saying that you're necessarily doing that, but that's how I feel. Can I get your side of the story? Can you tell me what's going on here, right? And ultimately, either the person is going to take that feedback and they're going to listen to you, and you're going to feel at the end of that conversation that you really have come away from it stronger, like you both have an increase in your mutual understanding and in your mutual consideration for each other. Or you're going to feel like you're having that conversation, but that feeling with those red flags is still coming up, right? So it's really about knowing our boundaries, and it's about knowing at what point do we need to walk away from something. And it's going to be something that we feel in our bodies 90% of the time, right? We're going to be feeling that discomfort. We know what the difference is between a relationship that feels nourishing, that feels expansive, that feels fulfilling, that feels like we're excited to be there, right? And we're happy about it. Not just excited like, oh, I'm getting all these dopamine spikes because I'm excited to see someone that I have feelings for, but also the feeling of security, also the feeling of when this person leaves, leaves as in like leaves my house, or our container of time is over, I'm not immediately worried about what they're doing, right? They're showing up for me in a way that shows that they prioritize me, that they prioritize my feelings, et cetera, et cetera. I always say that the deal breaker with relationships is how well someone takes feedback, right? None of us are going to be perfect at the start. And even when we find someone who we really mesh with, it's quite possible that we're still going to trigger each other and our wounds are going to rub up against one another. And we might misinterpret what one another means, or things are going to look like our past traumas, even when maybe they're not, because that's what we're used to. But the deal breaker for me, really, the true litmus test of whether a relationship is worth it, is when I sit down with that person and I communicate with them about what I'm feeling. Do they listen to me? Do they respect my feelings? Do they understand, or at least make an attempt to understand, where I'm coming from? And do they make adjustments in their behavior going forward? That really is the key, because none of us are going to be experts on each other from day one, right? So when you say, how do I break the pattern, for example, what that essentially means is when you see that pattern start to crop up, then the thing that you need to do is start to communicate around it. And if it keeps going in the same way that it's gone in the past, where you know it's going down a road that looks that looks fairly foreboding, right? If things don't get better, then yes, it's your responsibility at that point to be able to discern away from that relationship. The reason that so many of us get stuck in relationship patterns is because we're afraid of letting go of a relationship, because somewhere inside ourselves we're still thinking, well, being in this relationship that's got all these red flags in it is better than not being with anyone at all. At least it gives me some sense of validation, or it soothes my loneliness, or who would I, is anyone else going to love me? Maybe this is the best I can do, right? We want to get rid of all of those thoughts, all of those low, those patterns that come from that sense of low self-worth. And I don't say that as an attack, because I've been there too. Having a low sense of self-worth it's just a human problem that a lot of us need to work on. It's not our fault, because a lot of it, for many of us, was trauma imprinted. Even those of us who appear confident on the outside, like, we have dealt with a lot of that. Some of us are vastly overcompensating, okay? So essentially we need to get rid of these beliefs that say being on my own is a lot worse than being in, this relationship that really doesn't live up to my standards. So how do you break the pattern is, how do you notice the pattern? And how do you have the courage to break the pattern as soon as you notice it, right? As soon as you notice it, and maybe you have a couple conversations about it, just to make sure. I always like to say, like, is this my trauma? Is this my triggers? Is this something I'm making up in my head, right? But once we have that conversation, then we should reach that feeling of mutual understanding, and we should see adjustments in the behavior. If we don't, then it probably is that same pattern, and we have to be strong enough to walk away. I've always said that being available for the right person is better than being in a relationship with the wrong one, right? It's going to take us longer to find that relationship where we truly feel happy and fulfilled if we end up spending all our time in relationships where we don't feel happy and fulfilled. It's going to lower our vibration. It's going to lower our ideas of what is possible for us in the world. And it's going to, it's going to take up a lot of our time that we could otherwise be spending working on creating and I hate using the word manifesting in context like these. Like, we could be working on manifesting that relationship, but what I mean by that is we could be working on really having an understanding of what that relationship is going to feel like, and work on cultivating that feeling and that image of it in our minds, so that when something comes along that we want to discern away from, we can be very clear and say, no, I know this is not that. I'm going to hold out for this big thing. I'm going to hold out for this thing that I know that I'm worth and that I know is better, because the universe will always throw us similar situations to see if we're going to backslide into our old patterns and habits, or whether we've learned the lesson, right? So that's another saying is, like, our lessons will repeat until the lesson is learned, right? So being able to discern away as soon as you notice the pattern, being able to notice the pattern as quickly as possible, and being able to have that conversation to discern whether it's really happening or whether it's our trauma, right? Whether it's we're getting triggered by things that look similar. Once we have that conversation with the person, we should be able to understand whether they're really in it with us, and whether they're willing to make adjustments based on the things that that cause our feelings to be hurt, right? Or if they're just going to kind of steamroll our feelings or gaslight us and say, oh, well, then I can't do that, or whatever, I'm not the right person, or whatever, or they show themselves out the door the minute that we have a feeling that maybe feels inconvenient to them, right? So in that case, good riddance. So essentially that is how you break the pattern, is noticing it and being strong enough to hold to your standards and know that you deserve better for yourself. I also recommend watching some of the videos, choosing being chosen in romantic relationships. And if someone says you like them too much, if someone breaks up with you because you like them too much, they're doing you a favor. Those are two recent videos I made as well that really carry the vibration of being able to hold out for that person who is really going to show up for you and is really going to match you in your relational energy. So thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful.